I've always loved camping alone because of the peace that comes with being surrounded by nature, far away from people and noise. About 2 years ago, I decided to spend a weekend at a remote forest campsite that wasn't very popular, a place where you rarely see other campers unless you go looking for them. I arrived just before sunset, set up my tent, gathered some firewood, and everything felt quiet but completely normal. That night, after sitting by the fire for a while, I went into my tent and tried to sleep, listening to the usual sounds of crickets and leaves moving in the wind. At some point, I suddenly woke up without knowing why, like something subtle had pulled me out of sleep. Then I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling my tent. At first, I thought it might be an animal, maybe a deer, but the steps felt too steady and evenly spaced. I stayed completely still as the footsteps stopped right outside. Then I heard a whisper. "Hello?" It sounded human, right next to me. I didn't respond. A few seconds later, the voice came again, slightly louder. "I know you're in there." My heart started pounding as I lay frozen in silence. The person outside dragged something along the side of my tent, stretching the fabric slightly before continuing to circle around. After a few minutes, the footsteps slowly faded away, but I stayed awake the entire night. In the morning, I stepped outside and saw human footprints all around my tent. But what disturbed me the most was that they didn't lead anywhere. They just stopped, as if whoever was there had suddenly disappeared. I packed up immediately and left, and I never went back to that campsite again. This happened to me and two of my friends during a camping trip in the mountains. We had chosen a spot that required a bit of hiking to reach, so there weren't many people around. And since it was late fall, the area felt especially quiet and cold. The first night was completely normal. We joked around, made food, and stayed up late talking by the fire. But on the second night, things started to feel off. While sitting near the fire, we heard something moving in the woods behind us. At first, we ignored it, assuming it was just an animal, but when the sound came again, it clearly resembled footsteps. My friend Mark pointed a flashlight into the trees, but there was nothing there, just darkness. We laughed it off, but none of us felt completely at ease. Later that night, we went to sleep, with me and Mark sharing a tent, and our friend Daniel in his own. In the middle of the night, Mark woke me up, whispering if I could hear something. At first, there was silence, but then we heard a voice coming from outside Daniel's tent saying, "You okay in there?" It sounded exactly like Daniel, but he was inside his tent. Confused, we then heard Daniel's real voice from inside, asking nervously, "Did you just say that?" None of us had. Then the voice outside repeated the same words, in the exact same tone, but it was clearly coming from outside. We stayed completely still, too scared to respond, until we heard slow footsteps walking away into the forest. The next morning, Daniel looked pale and told us he hadn't slept at all, because after the voice left, it came back later and started scratching the side of his tent slowly and deliberately, like something trying to get inside. We packed up immediately and left, and to this day, none of us can explain how something out there was able to perfectly mimic his voice. This is something that happened when I went camping with my older brother near a quiet lake, far from the main campground. It was supposed to be a peaceful trip, and the first night was completely normal, but on the second night, we noticed something strange across the lake. A small light that looked like a campfire, even though we hadn't seen anyone else around all day. At first, we assumed someone had arrived late, but then the light started moving slowly along the edge of the water, steady and unnatural, like someone carrying a lantern. It eventually stopped directly across from us, Yet we couldn't see anyone there, just the light, before it suddenly went out completely. Later that night, I woke up to the sound of water, like something stepping through the lake, getting closer with slow, heavy splashes. I woke my brother, and we listened as the sound reached our side and then stopped right outside our tent. There were no footsteps on land, just silence, until suddenly a wet hand pressed against the side of the tent, clearly visible in the moonlight, with water dripping from its fingers. My brother immediately turned on a flashlight, but the hand was gone. We rushed outside and found no one there, only wet ground and footprints leading away from the lake that stopped just a few feet from our tent. After that, we stayed awake until sunrise and left as soon as we could, never finding out what crossed that lake that night.